Hello and welcome to Greet the Week. I am Mona Duncan and welcome those that are here with us now. And today's topic is on confronting and leveling. It is part of the series on learning to be more assertive or learning to get our needs met in more effective ways. And so we're looking at the fact that we are all flawed and fabulous, and that there are times when that it's imperative that we speak up. But maybe we have spoken up at times and it didn't turn out so effective. And there may have been times that we were either disregarded or anyway, that may not have worked. So we need to kind of learn and relearn again. And depending on one's personality, speaking up may come across as well, to the person that is shy and doesn't really know how to speak up, as well as the person that is real robust and is always speaking up, but comes to the point that maybe they need to learn to tone it down a little bit. Each one can come across as speaking up like the mouse that roared or the cat that finally found its tongue. And it can be uncomfortable and awkward. So we're going to look at some ways, hopefully, that will help us to address those things with grace and facility. So I am sharing the PowerPoint, and I'm going to bring it all the way up. Okay, here we go. So confronting and leveling. Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. But we may not be thinking that we're deceiving. We're just practicing. Anytime we practice or anytime we repeat something that we do again and again and again, it becomes habitual, whether we're doing it deliberately or just doing what seems to come naturally. So whenever we begin to decide that we need to level things out, either to fill up the disparity or to tone down the overage, that sometimes it is most important things require practice. And so part of that practice is getting emotionally honest. And emotional honesty to me is really quite different from just honesty as a whole. I know people, a couple that come to mind right up front, that is just as honest as the day is long, as far as not stealing, not harming, just being forthright and upfront. But I find that they're often not emotionally upfront, that they're sulking or they are angry. And you may ask, well, what's wrong? And nothing's wrong, because they don't know how to confront an issue. And I like to call it carefronting, in that I care enough about you, I care enough about the situation, I care enough about myself and others involved, that maybe we need to confront the issue. So it is important that we become emotionally honest, that if we're not happy, that we can speak it out, not to gripe and complain. Anyway, we're talking about doing things in moderation, and to realize that self-regard is intimately tied to our regard for others. If we do not regard others, it is in turn difficult to regard self. And that it is more about waking up than it is about cleaning up. That is, we really see what we are doing or are not doing, that we could do or could not do. It's more about being aware of that, rather than the fact that the time that we did speak up turned out to be ineffective. It's realizing that the largeness of our need equates the amount of power or the amount of energy that we give to it. And all too often, that if we do not have our needs met through kindness, then we will try to have them met through anger, through hate. Psychologists tell us that there are only two genuine emotions, and that those emotions are fear and love. And on that broad spectrum, that love, just the purest love there can be, and fear, the greatest fear there could be, fear is like the opposite of, it's the emptyment of love and caring. And so it is, if we don't have our needs met in loving kindness, then we will go to more desperate measures and have them met in, well, from just lying and disregard to riots and all kinds of things. And that all quality pictures, or all of our wants, primes the pump for fulfillment. So we have a picture of something that we want, but it's out of our reach, and it primes the pump of how do we go about fulfilling whatever it takes to have that need met. And it's looking at the fact that life is a paradox, that life evolves. It's more the flow of our mind. It is more the flow of having needs fulfilled than it is what we think or what our mind is. I've used this slide before, but it fits here too. Because if we don't find our needs fulfilled through kindness, we will try it in other ways. It is more in flow. If not, it's more the intellect. It is with our intellect that we understand, or think we understand, or misunderstand the issues of life. It's where we try to reason, measure, consider, tear them apart, look at it to see what we can, take it apart to see what it's made of. It's with our intellect, the understanding. It is with our emotions that we feel the issues of life, whether that's sorrow, pride, shame, regret, that we feel those issues of life. And it is with our will, and we all have a will, whether that's part of our power need or just the fact that we have the need to make our own decisions, to make our own choices. And it is with our will that we decide those issues of life. That after we've used our intellect and our emotion to look at them, we say yes or no. As to us, that is either truth, that it is an opportunity, that it is a temptation, that it is an action that we'll take. It is with our will that we make those decisions. And so often the things that we are looking at, tearing apart, understanding, anger shows up when we're on our back wheel, when we're on the feelings wheel, when we are going with the emotional wheel. And usually our emotions come when we are feeling unappreciated, when we feel belittled or put down, when we feel like we are helpless, we don't know what to say, what to do, when we have been taken for granted, when we've been ignored, when we are hurt, either physically or especially emotionally, when we are fearful, when we are frustrated, when we are rejected. I mean, all of these kind of things just begin to well up into that conflict, Well, those that watch live and then stay for after the airing comments, we talk quite frequently about conflicts and how it is so difficult to be around someone that just will not change their mind, that their mind is just set, their will is set, their mind is set. And so I thought I would give an example of a kind of a conflict that we're looking at. A conflict of it then and now, because conflicts grow. And sometimes the conflict can be with one person, and sometimes it kind of started out with one person, and we spread it to be with everyone. But anyway, we're looking at the conflict in and of itself. And so the conflict was a gathering for social hour. You know how those gatherings are, whether it is from the Chamber of Commerce or in the office. Anyway, it's a gathering, whether it's a family gathering or whatever. It's a social gathering. And one person there was extremely overbearing, had lots of degrees, and liked everyone to know about it, and was just always right. Another person, a part of the social gathering, was rather insecure, fairly well educated, but insecure, didn't have any degrees, and felt apart from the gang itself. There was no connection there. But time grows, time goes, and you see people on another level, on another point of view. And so the person who felt like they didn't connect began to enhance their position in the social group. And some of it was legitimate and some of it was not. It was, well, they really had the makeup on, okay? They really had the padding put in. And so 2 years goes by, or a long time goes by, and these two join together for an engagement. And 2 years, they are engaged. Oh, this is going to become a new family, a new business, a new whatever. These two have joined together. They're joined together. However, the burden of the lie on the part of one is overwhelming. And so are they to keep silent? Are they to speak up? And not only the lie of one is overwhelming, but the correctness, the rightness, the dominance of the other is also overwhelming, even though they have seen something in the other that would be more of a completion to them and help them to learn more about themselves. So anyway, so I'm looking here now at the responses. So what are our responses? Sometimes the response is to get even with the person that has offended us. Sometimes it's to take revenge. Sometimes it's to just hate them, just disregard, or to ignore them, just ignore that segment about them, especially if you're wanting to join forces, or to have a pity me, poor little me, and maybe we can begin to gossip and others will realize that I'm the underdog here. Or maybe we can have the response of choosing to forgive. So what are the consequences for the offense, for the one that was offended? If our response is to get even with them, what that does is that equates us as being just as bad as the one that offended us. It's kind of hard to see. That's why we have to go back to being emotionally honest. Maybe the idea or the response was to get revenge on them. Well, what that does, not only does it injure others, but it puts you as being less than the person that offended initially. And it harms you physically. That revenge, that getting even, it's kind of like, payback that is really robbing yourself. Well, what about hating them? Hating them, even though we can work together on this because we've got some common points, even that hate really puts you below someone you're seeing as your enemy, and it boomerangs. What about ignoring? Well, ignoring in and of itself. Now, there's a big, I always like to look at the differences is what I am saying and what I'm not saying. Ignoring someone has this self-righteous arrogance. It's a one-upmanship attitude. But there is a huge difference in ignoring someone's foibles than in overlooking them. In overlooking them is looking at the fact that I'm choosing to not openly point out this flaw, hoping that life will handle itself and that we can begin to see, that the other person can begin to see their own foibles and make amends. Well, that pity me may also set us up for gossip to let others know how that particular person or that situation has offended me, and it makes us the victim. And it sets us up to be used and abused again and again, even though we may vow for nothing like that to ever happen again. But if we can make the very choice of forgiving the person for their arrogance, for their indifference, for their whatever, it really sets you free. And it releases the offender to see their error. It gives correction to a higher authority. And sometimes those things do need to be passed on to a higher authority for someone else to come in and help to settle, whether it's a counselor or a friend or the justice system. So any conflict is more about me, myself, and I. And if we are having conflict with me, myself, and I, it is probably because of conflicts out here with others, whether it is the one or the many. And again, what are we to do? Speak up, stay silent, forgive and move on? There's no one answer. To not forgive and move on, and how's that going to help? To forgive and stay, and if you do that, there's ramifications for everything. To learn by painful experience, as in speaking up, to self-evaluate and practice your statement of how you will speak up. So if you do speak up, how do you handle it afterward? Well, it's realizing that facing your own faults, even though someone else may think badly of you, that, well, I can't believe she did that, he did that, I can't. Even though facing those faults equates to leveling out and to becoming a good person. Admitting a lie, admitting a foible, admitting an error is just adding to the goodness of your personhood. But after speaking up, don't go into trying to explain other people's as to what caused your unhappiness. Don't use your unhappiness as an excuse for why you were in error in the conflict. And in explaining yourself, always use just the facts. Realizing that confidence leads to acceptance. It leads to admitting a fault and then not bemoaning it, leads to others being willing to give you a second chance. It is the others, after speaking up, the others, for you personally to be ready to receive their acceptance. And maybe even, and realizing that, and embracing their acceptance and seeing your world just expand. So, realizing that you are more than your worst decision. And I like this quote from Joe Kogel. The worst thing in your life may contain seeds of the best. When you can see crises as an opportunity, your life becomes not easier, no, it can be quite difficult, but more satisfying. It's not easier, but it becomes more satisfying as we can begin to. So what are some components of confronting? What does that mean and how do you do it? I call confronting, it's when you need to speak up, that instead of confronting and getting all edgy about it, to care enough about you, about the person, about the office, about the family, about the situation, that you speak up. And confronting is done caringly, gently, constructively, clearly. Confronting is working toward relationship building with honesty and integrity. It is inviting change without demanding change, and it sets up that atmosphere for change. Confronting is communication with respect and impact. Confronting has the offender's best interest at heart. Confronting holds a two-way mirror to see the offender, but to also to see yourself as the offended. It's a two-way mirror. It's realizing how I have been offended, but bringing this up may even offend you. It is looking that it's not just me, myself, and I. It is a more of a universal thing. Confronting is not blaming, not shaming, not bullying. Confronting is leveling. It's evening out. It's making a level playing field that is open and for honesty and for responses. So here are the steps. And I hope I have, well, I thought I had them coming in one at a time, but I don't. So, one, it is working through before you confront anyone about anything. Here's some suggestions. Work through your anger. Wait long enough that you can be objective, not just going in with all my point of view, and where you can say it in such a way that although it may offend and it may anger someone, that to prevent as much harm as possible. Two, that you initiate the contact, not go in it when you're emotionally overwrought. Regardless of whether you are the offender or whether you have been offended, initiate the contact. And point number three is you talk with them, you set a time and a place where you can meet privately. I'd like to speak with you about something. There's something that's been bothering me, something I'd like to talk with you about, I'd like some more clarification on, that I care about you. You want to affirm your relationship. And then whenever you do meet together, you want to obtain a fresh permission to challenge them. We talked the other day. I asked if we could get together to talk about this. So I'm asking you again, there was something that you said, there was something that I said, something that I would like to discuss. So you're wanting to obtain fresh permission to bring this issue up. Then you communicate the issue from your point of view. And what you're doing is you're wanting to explain your clarity, your understanding of what was going on or what happened. Point five is allow the other person, whoever the other is, to share their point of view. And maybe even as they do, write down some words that they may have said that you want to go back and have a more understanding of. I look at understanding. We can understand. Here's you and here's me, okay? Here's they and here's us. That we have more understand. So here we want to understand. That we can have more understanding when we stand under where they are coming from. When we are willing to look at what they are saying and see it from another point of view. from their point of view. So you want to be gracious and you want to be receptive to what they're saying. And then, as necessary, ask for or give forgiveness. Speak up if there's an agreement. If there's not an agreement, point 7, compromise only on opinions, not on principles. As in, red is good and blue is good. It's not red is better than good, or blue is better than red, or yellow is better than green. It is making a compromise on some opinions, not on the principle of the color or the alphabet or the legitimacy of value. You do not have to agree with someone to be agreeable. You do not have to respect or to acknowledge another. Does not mean you condone or that you approve. It is simply relating to, as I see where you're coming from. And then point 8 is to affirm your regard for the other's contribution to your life. We've been in this organization for a long time. We're a part of the family. I have learned much from you. Affirm their contribution to your life, to the organization, to the workforce, and never let them doubt that deep down inside, your carefronting has come from a place of genuine regard and genuine caring. And then when and if appropriate, you may let others know that things are getting a little better. And so, that's the thoughts thus far on looking at how to confront, to carefront, whether it is to make an apology or whether it is in a means or whether it is to give more information or whether it is to obtain more information. And that always, always, always realize that the only time we ever want to make things even, or the only time we want to even out something for someone else is whenever it's whenever they have done wonderful things for us, that we want to get even with how much we can in turn be a blessing to their life. So I'm going to thank you for being here and stop the recording and have a blessed day.